All right, so this one, okay, says which expression is equivalent to negative 6x, open parentheses, 7x minus 3x. All right, so as you notice, we see the word equivalent. So when you see the word equivalent, that means this is equal. Okay, so which one's the same? All right, so in other words, equivalence is same or equals. All right, to negative 6. And then we have, you see those open parentheses? What does those open parentheses tell us to do? Okay, remember, it tells us to multiply. So every time you see those parentheses, okay, those parentheses means multiply. Multiply. All right, so those, or remember the little dot tells us to multiply as well. All right, so first step, I wrote some steps for you. Okay, rewrite the expression. So the reason why I have y'all do that is because sometimes you're not going to have a lot of space to be able to do that work, because more likely your answer choices are going to be like, on in the way. So if you need that, okay, you can do so. But for time's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and right where I see it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say that I did, and then we're going to do this distributive property, which means that that's where you multiply. Okay, distributive property means multiplying. All right, so we see that we have a negative 6x. All right, so that's those. Remember that I told you you're going to multiply anything that's outside those parentheses directly. So in this case, the numbers outside would be that negative 6x. Okay, I did bad at tracing that, so let me erase that part. All right, so you want to go ahead and we're going to do negative 6x, and I'm going to multiply that times that 7x, okay? 7x. So I'm going to write my work over here. Negative 6x times 7x. All right, so I'm going to go to my decimals, okay? I'm going to go to my decimals, and I'm going to multiply negative 6, so I'm going to move myself over here. Negative 6 times, okay, times what was a negative number? No, it was a positive. Times 7. All right, and I see that I got negative 42. So I'm going to make sure I write that out. So I got negative, I want that in pink. Okay, negative 42. And then I see that I have an x, so I know I'm going to have an x, but I see I have two x's. So when I'm multiplying and there's two x's, that is going to be, okay, we have 1 and 2, we're going to add those. So we're going to have two x's. The only time you do not add, you do not put an exponent, is when we're combining. So when we're adding, we do not add those exponents. But when we're multiplying, okay, that is when you add those exponents. So that's when you add. And we'll talk about that more into detail. But in this case, it's just going to be 2x's because we have 2x times x. Okay? All right. So looking at my answer choices, I know I already can eliminate this one because it has 13. All right. And I can eliminate this one because it doesn't have that negative 42. All right, so before I even continue, let's make sure. So I have two options right now. So the one that has that negative is that B, but I want to make sure that that's the right one, okay? Because you could have put something else. You could have forgotten your negatives, and that would have resulted you to getting a different answer. So let's make sure that the other part is correct. So I'm going to do the same thing, okay? Remember, you got to multiply everything inside. So I'm going to multiply that negative 6. So let me change that actually to we'll do a blue. Yeah, we'll do blue. Negative 6, I'm going to negative 6x. And I'm going to multiply that times that negative 3. Remember, the reason it's a negative is because we see that minus sign. So I'm going to say negative 6x times negative 3. All right, so now I'm going to go back to decimal. So I'm going to put in negative 6. So in order for you to get a so remember negative 6. Oh, look, it popped up. Negative 6 times 3. Okay, negative 6 times 3. We see that is 18. But what type of 18? It's a negative 18. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I do negative. I write out negative 18. And then look, I see I have an X, so I'm gonna make sure I have an X as my ending. If this is that -3 had another X, then I would go ahead and add square because both of them have X's. In this case, there's only one that has an X, so therefore that one has an X. All right, so let's look at your insert choices. Oh, it's actually, yeah, it's -3. So make sure you actually typed it in. Make have that negative in there because that does change your answer. As you notice, I did not have that negative, so therefore, um, I would have gotten that question wrong. Okay, so that is a positive 18. So I'm gonna make sure I change that. Okay. All right. So there's why I do want you to double check, because otherwise you could get this wrong. Because I was like, wait, where's my answer? All right, just to make sure. All right, your A does not is lacking that positive 18, and right here it tells us is a negative 18. We don't want a negative 18. And what's also wrong with A is also we were missing that negative sign. So A is automatically wrong. All right, so let's look at B. Does it have positive 42, negative 42? Yes. Okay. Does it have positive 18? Hey, X. Yes. So therefore, my answer in this case will be B. Okay, I'll do that in, all right? And that's all it is.